Welcome to Hero Villains. Who do you think would win, Superboy Prime or True Darkseid? Superboy Prime is a version of Superman from a universe that was destroyed, where he once lived as a hero in a peaceful world before losing everything. That tragedy turned him into a raging being with power far beyond ordinary Kryptonians. He possesses nearly unlimited physical strength, speeds that surpass the speed of light, the ability to break space itself with his fists, and durability that few can match, enough for him to fight multiple gods and cosmic entities at the same time. True Darkseid is the true form of the Lord of Apokolips, an existence beyond the multiverse, a living concept of destruction and domination. The form that heroes usually encounter is only an avatar of him. In his true form, Darkseid is an abstract force capable of crushing all reality, manipulating space, time, and will, with the Omega effect capable of erasing existence at a fundamental level. In a confrontation, Superboy Prime represents pure, violent, and uncontrollable power, while True Darkseid represents absolute conceptual authority. Even if Superboy Prime can shake the entire multiverse with his punches, before Darkseid's true form, he is likely nothing more than a powerful warrior facing the foundation of existence itself. Before we dive into the analysis, please hit the subscribe button and remember to turn on notifications by tapping the bell icon. Thank you all very much. Superboy Prime is considered one of the most dangerous beings to ever appear in the DC universe, a power capable of threatening the survival of the entire multiverse when pushed to its highest potential. Although his power varies depending on the story, his physical strength far exceeds the standard of a normal Superman. In his full power state, Superboy Prime has shattered planets, torn entire tectonic plates from the ground, and even moved the moon using raw physical strength alone. In moments of rage, he can rip open space and crack the structure of reality itself. His flight reaches terrifying speeds, from supersonic to faster than light, allowing him to travel across galaxies and pass through dimensions without any assistance. His body is nearly invulnerable, capable of withstanding almost all forms of physical and energy-based attacks, and he recovers extremely quickly even after severe injuries. Standard Kryptonian abilities such as heat vision, freeze breath, super hearing, and enhanced vision are all amplified to destructive levels. The most terrifying thing about Superboy Prime lies in how his power increases with emotion. His rage is not just a feeling but fuel for catastrophe. When his emotions exceed control, his power skyrockets exponentially, turning every strike into a blow that shakes reality. This makes Superboy Prime not just an opponent but a living disaster born from absolute power. Before the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, Superboy Prime was originally created as a counterpart to the early era Superman, strong but still within the familiar limits of a standard Kryptonian hero. At that time, he was the image of a young superhero with the desire to protect the world. Impressive, but far from reaching a universe-destroying level. During the height of the storyline, Superboy Prime transformed into a true storm of destruction. He fought dozens of superheroes at once, crushed the Teen Titans and the Justice Society without mercy. Every punch he delivered was capable of warping space, tearing the structure of reality, and leaving cracks spreading across the multiverse. Even Superman and Superboy were overwhelmed many times in direct clashes, witnessing entire Earths from smaller universes collapse under his solitary power. That was the moment when the name Superboy Prime was no longer tied to hope, but became pure terror. After the aftermath of the Sinestro Corps War and Blackest Night, his power at times weakened, was imprisoned, or stripped away. Yet, as a threat large enough to endanger the entire universe, he was again portrayed as a Kryptonian at absolute peak. Even so, Superboy Prime does not belong to the class of omnipotent beings or metaphysical creators like Spectre or Presence. However, in a cruel twist, with nothing but his fists and his rage, he can still cause damage capable of reshaping the entire universe. And those limits only make him more terrifying, because a being who is not a god yet can shake reality is the greatest nightmare for every world. Even when placed in his weakest state, Superboy Prime still demonstrated power surpassing God Brainiac, an entity that had observed countless versions of itself across the multiversal timeline. Superboy Prime's combat ability is not based solely on brute strength, but is also forged through life and death battles against the most powerful superhero teams. He has single-handedly defeated an entire squad of elite warriors, easily taking down Power Girl and Martian Manhunter Manhunter as if they were nothing more than small obstacles in his path. Even the Lantern Corps, fueled by collective willpower, could not become a real threat. What is even more terrifying is when Superboy Prime faced two Supermen at the same time and still held the upper hand. He endured Black Adam's attacks and finished him off in a single moment. In that same endless crisis, Amazo, who possessed the power of the entire Justice League, along with Silver Banshee, Gorilla Grodd, and numerous other heroes, combined forces to restrain him, but failed miserably. Superboy Prime even tore off Amazo's head in an unstoppable rage. In another event, when the Golden Age Superman struck the Force Shield, the impact was strong enough to shake the multiverse and cause distant stars to shatter. The Green Lantern Corps scattered across the antimatter universe all felt the shockwaves. Superboy Prime once stood at the center of the catastrophic explosion from Alexander Luthor's tower and remained completely unharmed. When the tower collapsed, the order of existence itself began to fall apart, and yet Prime still stood firm in the heart of destruction like an indestructible figure. At even greater feats, he once shattered the Source Wall and tore open the fifth dimension using only his heat vision, reaching levels of power that very few beings in DC can ever approach. Superboy Prime completely destroyed Earth 51 and effortlessly moved planets as if they were nothing more than lifeless stones in his hands. He tore apart Monarch's armor in its basic form. A foe who had merged with 51 parallel versions of Captain Atom and surpassed every Superman across the multiverse. Even though Monarch survived a close-range explosion, he still could not escape defeat at the hands of Prime. He also once stopped Sodam Yat, who possessed the power of Ion, and defeated him even when Yat had the Ion energy, the central battery, thousands of Green Lantern rings, and the support of Bart Allen, Mon-El, and many other heroes. Prime's strength is regarded as even greater than that of Hal Jordan and Guy Gardner, warriors who once faced Parallax. Even more terrifying, he broke through the defensive structure created by the entire Green Lantern Corps when they had only 20% power left right at Darkseid's singularity point where the multiverse was being consumed. Those moments are not just achievements, but declarations that Superboy Prime is one of the greatest forces of destruction ever to cross the boundaries of reality. I really hope you will subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot and you are truly amazing. Thank you very much. True form Darkseid is portrayed as an absolute force. In his truest state, he can defeat the Quintessence, a group of powerful beings who stand above the entire multiverse. With a single attack, when facing Tartarus, Darkseid easily crushed his opponent thanks to the combined power of the 8 rings of the ancient spectrum. With Asmodel of Pax Day, the outcome was even more decisive, as Darkseid defeated him in a way that felt causal, as if the result had been predetermined before the battle even began. Even Empty Hand, a being directly connected to the Great Darkness through the crack, could not overpower Darkseid. Despite receiving strength from the Great Darkness, Empty Hand still could not force Darkseid into submission. Darkseid's Omega Beams were powerful enough to push back and control Empty Hand at the most crucial moment. There was a point where Empty Hand unleashed a ferocious counterattack that made space seem to shatter. Yet Darkseid was almost untouched. He stood firm amidst the shockwaves, his cold gaze locked on his opponent like a final sentence. Immediately afterward, Darkseid was even willing to pursue Empty Hand straight into the Great Darkness, a realm feared even by the highest beings. These moments show that true form Darkseid is not just a tyrant of Apokolips, but the embodiment of destruction and pure power. His strength does not need grand displays. A single motion is enough to make the oldest orders of the multiverse tremble. True form Darkseid once fell into the void and survived in a way that seemed nearly paradoxical, though this is not entirely unique, as Doomsday and Ares have accomplished similar feats. However, some argue that Darkseid being restrained by the Justice League incarnate proves he had weakened. In truth, the situation was very different. Darkseid later broke free of that control almost casually while still choosing to restrain his own power. When the Spectre, in the form of Hal Jordan, risked approaching the Source Wall to seek an answer regarding the essential existence of Darkseid, he encountered a direct manifestation of the Source. The Source used the imagery of the Green Lantern power battery as a metaphor to explain that without both positive and negative aspects coexisting, balance could not be sustained. The fall of Darkseid in that moment was not merely the death of an individual, but a shockwave that spread through the entire timeline. His darkness enveloped the multiverse, pulling universes toward a singularity where all existence merged with Darkseid. The true form of Darkseid was so vast that his shadow stretched across the entire plane of the DC multiverse, proving that he does not only exist within the multiverse, but stands above its very structure. At this level, true form Darkseid is at least a purely multiversal essence, a true powerhouse capable of surpassing every opponent once believed to have defeated him. The deeper one examines his true nature, the clearer it becomes that Darkseid is not merely a tyrant but an inseparable part of the order of existence. Darkseid and all the new gods are not simply physical beings but living embodiments of abstract concepts that exist beyond normal limits. Their complete forms reside in the fourth world, a dimension separate from all constraints of time and space. For that reason, when Darkseid completely subdued New Genesis and evil took absolute dominance, the order of the multiverse immediately reversed. The heroes, no matter how powerful they once were, began to lose to every villain they encountered. Goodness lost its foundation of existence, and defeat became an unavoidable fate. When Darkseid was finally defeated by his own son Orion, that collapse was not just symbolic. His entire true essence, no longer filtered or slowed by the Speed Force wall, hurled itself into the multiverse like a meteor of pure concept. An abstract entity greater than the entire multiverse was now falling directly into its core. Multiversity preserved the spirit of Final Crisis, and Scott Snyder's Justice League continued to directly inherit those consequences. Even though they were released after New 52, both works maintained the continuity of Final Crisis, and Rebirth further reinforced the irreplaceable significance of this event within the structure of the DC universe. Altogether, it shows that the fall of Darkseid was not merely the end of a tyrant, but a foundational turning point that shook everything to its core. When Darkseid's true four-dimensional essence plunged into the multiverse, it brought with it a collapse on a universal scale. This was not an ordinary invasion, but a direct collision between a divine concept and the fabric of reality, shaking the order of existence from its roots. Every time Darkseid appears on Earth, his power is diminished. And the opposite also happens to Superman when he sets foot on Apokolips. This phenomenon comes from the boom tube, a mechanism that adjusts size and power to match the realm into which a being travels. Without that adjustment, Superman entering the realm of the gods would be as small as an atom, while Darkseid would only need a single motion to erase the entire multiverse. Therefore, the battles between Darkseid and Superman on Earth are actually clashes between manifestations whose powers have been balanced. Even so, Darkseid has slapped Superman down many times, showing that even when restricted, he remains an incredibly terrifying force. Superman has reached universal and even multiversal levels of power, but that does not overshadow Darkseid's true nature. His true form resides on Apokolips, a domain that exists outside the ordinary universe, beyond even the multiverse, with countless dimensions. It is the realm of the gods, where the laws of physics are no longer absolute, and power is measured by concept rather than mass or energy. Whenever Darkseid steps out of that realm, he does not only carry his power with him, but also the shadow of an ancient concept, something that makes even the bravest hesitate before raising a fist against the darkness. Darkseid told him that the Spectre, also known as the Wrath of God, has no power over him or Apokolips. In addition, this new Darkseid may be an avatar who killed the Spectre and the Quintessence without any effort. Superboy Prime once defeated the Darkest Night, a being considered the ultimate darkness of the multiverse. When the Darkest Night confronted Perpetua, the mother of the Monitors, every aspect of reality fell into violent chaos. The clash between these two entities alone was enough to push the entire multiverse to the brink of collapse. Perpetua once tore pieces from the Overvoid to create her children, the Monitor brothers, among whom World Forger is the most notable. World Forger could shape and destroy the multiverse each day as he wished, reaching high multiversal and near super universal levels. Yet even when joining forces with his brothers, he still could not surpass his mother. When the Anti-Monitor, World Forger, and Monitor merged into Ultra Monitor, a being of converged multiversal power was born, but Perpetua still stood above all. This places the Darkest Knight at a threshold of ultimate power and makes Superboy Prime's victory even more remarkable. Prime reached a level that very few beings in DC can touch, someone capable of shaking the outer layers of reality. Darkseid, according to Grant Morrison, only truly appeared for the first time in Final Crisis. With a single clenched hand, cracks spread across the shape of reality. Universes began to bleed and blend into one another like torn colors. A singularity slowly formed, and the entire multiverse was dragged toward it by an overwhelming gravitational pull. Darkseid's presence also weakened the Starheart, the source of chaotic magic, causing time and the structure of reality to start breaking apart. He destroyed the new gods, beings who were already at the peak of power. In the end, Superman was forced to use the Miracle Machine to restore the multiverse and finish Darkseid with a sound wave, while he existed only as a diminished core of energy eroded by radiation and the Black Racer. From a personal perspective, Superboy Prime currently wins mainly because of the power level he achieved after the Darkest Knight, and as long as that standing is not overturned, Prime will continue to be remembered as one of the most terrifying forces to ever exist. Superboy Prime is the one who wins now. I hope you enjoyed this battle. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Follow me if you like. That is the video for today. Thank you very much.